Hello everybody, I hadn't seen you for a fortnight and there's a reason for that. I was using a brush cutter a couple of weeks ago and I've wrenched all my back muscles, so I've been flat out. I was bedridden for the first week. Anyway, that's by the by. So I thought I'd better put in an appearance, otherwise you think I've carked it. Well, so what have I got for you today? It's a bike that I had about 3 years ago, just before I started this channel, and it was by far above and beyond the best bike I've ever owned in every possible way. So what was it? Well, I can show you what it was. I've got one here. If I can get it up into shot. It's that. And that is a Husqvarna Nuda 900. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not. And the reason I say that is because when I had that bike, I went to the Husqvarna dealers and they'd never heard of it. It was built only for 2 years, from between 2012 and 2014. But what a bit of kit. And I had been looking for one for a long time, and the prices they started, I could watch when they did get listed, the prices were going up and up and up. Anyway, I saw an advert for one up in Derby, and I was on the phone to him straight away and I said, I'll have it. Sight unseen, I'll have it. And I arranged to go up the next day to pick it up. So that was it, job done. Now, my dad, he was alive then, he said, "What, did I hear you say you're going to Derby?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to Derby tomorrow." Because I was born in Derby, and my dad was born in Derby, and my mum was born in Yorkshire, and we're up that way anyway. So he said, "Can I come with you?" And bearing in mind that my dad was 90 then, I said, "Yeah, of course you can." I said, "Why do you want to come with me then?" He said, "Well, I've got a school friend." He said, "You can drop me off. I'll go and see." I said, "A school friend?" I said, "You're 90. How old was he?" He said, "I know, he was in the same class as me." He said, "He was 90 as well." He's 90. So I said, "Okay, all right, whatever." Thought that would be a bit steady, wouldn't it? I said, "Well, I'll drop you off. I'll go and pick the bike up." I said, "And then I'll come back and then pick you up." So we went up to Derby, found the guy, lovely fella he was, and he said, "I'm a little bit shocked at your age." And I said, "Well, don't worry about that. I'm like that every time I look in the mirror." And he said, "Well, I meant for the bike. I mean, I can't imagine you on that kind of bike." And I said, "Well, there you go. I'm mad." So I said, "So take it with a pinch of salt." He said, we went up, and the old Ford Ranger you've seen in the background in some of my videos, a 2001 Ford Ranger with a double cab on it. I'd done all my homework and I found out the length of this Husqvarna, and it would just go in the buck, because there's only quite a short buck in there with the double cab, if I put the tailgate down. We could just about get it in there. Well, it's a pretty high old truck and I didn't have any ramps or anything. So the guy said to me, he said, "How are you going to get it in the truck?" I said, "Well, I'm hoping that you've got some burly neighbours or some burly mates that can come and give us a hand." And he said, "I'll make a few phone calls. We'll have a cup of coffee. Come on, jump in." So went indoors and he made me a cup of coffee and was on the phone. And we got talking about bikes, and he was saying it's a hell of a bike, you know, that bike. And I said, "Yeah, I do know a bit about them." And he said, "Oh well, it's up to you." Anyway, so his mates turned up, and I looked out the window and there was 5 pickup trucks outside his house. of various different sizes, and a whole rake of people getting out of them, really burly blokes, big blokes, you know. I said, "Are they all your mates?" He said, yeah. So you know, we went outside to meet them, and he said, "How you doing? Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." One of them asked me, and he said, "Have you just bought this bike?" And I said, "Yeah." "You're too old for a bike like that." Oh, here we go. So I said, "Well, you're too fat to get in that pickup truck by the look of it." He said, "Yeah, I know, I am a bit overweight." He said, "But no, fair play. If you bought it, you bought it." Anyway, they got it all into the back of the truck, and the guy was pretty cut up about getting rid of it. You know, he'd had it for a little while, and he was, but he bought a 1290 Super Duke KTM, and he was really stretched to part with that Nuda. But once it was strapped in and I'd paid for it, that was mine, that was it, it was going home. So I went and picked my dad up from his school friend, and off we came home. And a funny thing happened on the way home, I'll cover that towards the end. So what can I tell you about this bike? Well, how did it all begin? Well, it all began in 2007, when Husqvarna got in financial trouble. Husqvarna were just made off-road bikes. They didn't make a road bike. For 25 years they made off-road bikes. And at the end of the day, they were going to go bust. They got in financial trouble, and they were bought out by BMW. And BMW said to Husqvarna, "Well, because we own you now, you're going to have to build a road bike." And they said, "Well, we haven't made a road bike for 25 years. And he said, "Well, that's what I want you to do. That's what we're going to do." Hang on a second. Yeah, back again now. So, yeah, BMW said, "Well, you're going to have to make a road bike, you know, and that's simple as that. We'll give you a bike and you can work with that. So you don't have to start from scratch." Anyway, the bike duly turned up, and it was a BMW F800 GS. Well, if you know anything about the BMW F800s, they're an 800 vertical twin. Nothing really to commend them, really. They're just a bit boring, really. And Husqvarna sort of said, "Well, what we're supposed to do with this, you know? It's not anything that we're sort of into." Anyway, they got their design team to look it over, and they did a complete makeover on it, put it together, and offered it to BMW, and they looked at it and said, "Well, it's pretty spectacular looking compared with what it did look like. What do you think of it then?" And Husqvarna just said, "I hate it." And they said, "Well, what do you hate about it then?" He said, "It's the engine. It's a bit of a lemon, really, isn't it?" He said, "Well, you've got a budget, you know, sort it out." So they said, "Okay." He said, "Make the engine like however you want it, but use the engine and the frame." So they took the engine out, and they did a little trip up to Austria, and went to Rotax and asked them if they could do anything with it. Rotax said, "What do you want doing with it?" And they said, "We want more power, more torque, more capacity, quicker throttle responses, want more of everything." So they agreed to look it over and see what they could do. And they had it for a few months, and sent it back to Husqvarna, who fitted it in the bike, and it transformed it, absolutely transformed it. It was now putting out 105 horsepower at the crank. Rotax had overbored the cylinders by 2mm to get extra capacity. They'd gone to 13:1 compression ratio. I mean, that's ridiculously high for pump petrol, but it ran well on it. 13:1. I mean, you've only got to get to 16:1 and you're up to diesel specs. You know, that's what sort of compression ratio diesels run at. So they worked on the heads and recast them exactly the same, but with 4 valves per cylinder. They ported them right out to take 45mm throttle bodies. I mean, they're massive throttle bodies, and they're downdraft straight onto the inlet valves. So it certainly breathed. And the icing on the cake was a 270-degree crank to make it run smoother than the 360-degree crank that was in it. And they gave the crank a little bit more stroke to get the 900cc. But they were 898, they were in the end. And 75 foot-pounds of torque, which is not to be sneered at. All in a package that weighed, I've got it written down here, I can't remember it all. 174 kilos, which is 383.6 pounds. That is about the same as my little 125 Honda Varadero, which has got 15 horsepower. It's amazing. So if you put that kind of power, 105 horsepower at the crank, into a bike that weighs as much as a 125, it's going to fly. It's seriously going to fly. Now the shock absorbers on the back were Öhlins. There's a cantilever suspension, and with an Öhlins shock absorber on it. The front forks were Sachs upside downs. Had 320mm twin discs on the front, Brembo, 4-pot calipers. They are 48mm diameter forks. The rear brake was a single disc, 220mm, but still 4-pot caliper, Brembo again. And the frame had been stiffened up compared with what BMW had, and it was an absolutely awesome bike, absolutely awesome. It went like a scolded cat, it really did. You had endless power. The moment you touched the throttle, it was so responsive, it just took off. And I passed it on after a couple of years. The reason being, although I absolutely loved the bike, it was so addictive, and it just handled. I've never ridden a bike that handles as well as that. I've never ridden one since or before. It was just, I mean, it had Battle Axe tyres on it, which made it quite a grippy thing. Big old tyres on the back, 17 on the front and back. It was an amazing bike, absolutely amazing. It was cheap to run as well. But I've been looking at the odd one or two that came up after I bought it, and the prices were going silly. They were going 8 grand, 9 grand. And I put about 3,000 miles on this Husqvarna, and I thought I don't really want to push it over 10,000 really, because I'm going to be losing value on it, putting more miles on it. So I stopped riding it. That's the only reason I stopped riding. Just not to put any. It's done just over 10,000 miles when I stopped riding it, and I kept it for a year and never rode it. Might have started it up a few times. And then I decided to sell it because I wasn't riding it and it was just there, and I had a rush of blood in my head and thought, right, the prices are as high as they're ever going to get, and I sold it. I advertised it and it was sold the next day. A lady came and bought it, and she bought it for her husband for his birthday present, because he'd got a Kawasaki Ninja and she was worried to death he was going to kill himself on it. So she thought she'd buy something a little bit tamer than that. Well, this wasn't very much tamer than that, I can assure you. So it went to a good home. He may even watch this video, you never know. If he does, he'll recognise the registration number if he's still got the bike. So yeah, I sold it. I got £2,400 more than I paid for it. That shows how the prices went up. And that was another reason that I sold it. The other reason, the main reason, well, not the main reason, it's, how can I say, the competency of the bike was far greater than me. I mean, it was wasted on me. I mean, I could not put it through to its limits, not its absolute limits. I'm not that sort of brave, but I mean, it was far too competent for me, that bike. And I thought, you know, I reckon if this is going to end me, this bike, if I get in a muddle with it. I'm not saying I can't ride. I mean, I've been riding for 55 years, but trouble is, with that power delivery and the way the gear ratios were spaced, it was a 6-speed gearbox. And the way the power delivery, it just made you ride it hard. It was just made to be ridden hard. It was never designed to bumble around the back roads like we do with the Enfields. And I thought, yeah, it's only a matter of time before I come off this, you know, because you could wind it up to a ton without even thinking. You look down and you're doing a ton, you know. And I thought, well, I don't know. So I passed it on. Would I have another one? Yeah, I'd have another one. If one came up at the right price. They came in 2 colours. The black one, like mine, which was the Nuda S. And the one like the little model I got here, with the red stripes on the down the side of it. That's the Nuda R. Now, the only difference was there was a very slight difference in the calipers on the front forks, and the fuel mapping was very slightly different as well for the R. But I had mine remapped by DynoJet, which was a complete education, because they remapped my bike from America by using my laptop. I had to get a USB to a USB cable, plug it into my laptop and plug it into the bike, and they'd send me a link by email, and I'd hit the link, and that I had to sign a digital thing to say that I'm allowing them to alter my bike, and they remapped it from my computer, my laptop. Technology, I don't understand it. It's beyond me, but they got the map absolutely perfect. And yeah, it was just a brilliant bike. And it is, without any doubt at all, the best bike I have ever owned. Whether I'll ever have another one or not, I don't know. I'm not actively looking for one, but you never know. So the funny thing about, I was telling you, there's a funny thing about my dad. When we're coming back from, I picked him up from seeing his girlfriend, mate, and he said, I haven't bought any sandwiches with me, or I haven't packed a flask. I said, don't worry about it. I said, we'll just get something on the way home. So he said, okay. And just left it at that. Anyway, I saw the big M, big yellow M on the sign. I thought that would do. McDonald's were pulling their So I went into the drive-through. And he said, where are we going? I said, we'll get something to eat. I said, don't get out, you don't need to get out. No, he said, right. Now, he's 90 and he's got a little bit deaf. So I've gone to the speaky box on the side of the wall and given him my order. I guessed what he would want, you know, I just took a guess. So they had a couple of chicken wraps, I think they were, and 2 lattes. He suddenly, when I'd finished putting the order, I went to the next window, or started to drive forward to the next window, and he said, who are you talking to? There's nobody there. I said, don't worry about it then. So we got to the next window, and he got a carrier bag. I don't know what he got in there, but he was fiddling about in his carrier bag between his knees, and he didn't see me pay. So by the time we got past that window and gone to the window where they dish the food out, he's still messing about with his carrier bag. And I said, yeah, look. And the girl leaned out with the order, and she gave me a cup holder with 2 cups in it. I said, hold those, quick. And then I'll grab the food, and he's sort of looking, and I said, just stick that on your lap. I said, we'll find somewhere to park. So we parked in the car park. Now I turned the engine off and I looked at him, and he was just glaring at me, like in complete rage. And I thought, I said, what's the matter with you then? He said, I thought I brought you up better than that. I said, now what have I done? I said, just bought you dinner. No, bought it? He said, you stole it. I said, what are you talking about? You just leaned into that lady's kitchen window and stole her food off the table. I said, this is McDonald. I don't care what her name is. He said, you stole that food and I'm not eating it. It's stolen food. In fact, I've got a good mind to go and take it back. I said, do you remember when we pulled in here? I said, and you asked who I was talking to? He said, yes. And I said, well, there's a box on the wall with a speaker in it and a microphone. And I was putting my order in to the staff inside. Then you go to the next window, which you didn't notice, and that's where I paid. And then we go to the next window, and that's where they hand you the food. Simple. That's how it works. No, you stole it. I said, no, I didn't. Look in the bag. I said, you'll find the receipt. And he's... Old people, don't they come out with some funny things, don't they, eh? Bless him. Anyway, he's gone now, and I'm just left to tell the story, really, aren't I? Anyway, I'm going to end it here, but I'm going to end it on a clip with a Nuda, and you can see what it's capable of. It's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I'll leave you with it. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.